Commander Lee Taman stood at the main window of Kepler Station and looked out at the stars. The mining station was quiet this morning. Most of the 50,000 people who lived there were still sleeping. He liked these early hours when he could think in peace. Lee Taman had been the security chief for 3 years now. Before that, he served in the Earth Defense Force for 15 years. He came to Kepler Station because his sister Park So-young worked here as the chief researcher. She studied the rare minerals they found in the asteroids around this place. The station was home to many families. There were schools for children, shops, restaurants, and even a small park with real trees from Earth. People here were happy. They worked hard during the day and enjoyed quiet evenings with their families. Lee Taman made sure they stayed safe. His radio buzzed. "Commander, we have ships coming in," said Officer Kim from the control room. "They're not on our schedule." Lee Taman walked quickly to the control center. On the big screen, he saw 5 large ships moving toward the station. They were bigger than any human ships he had ever seen. The ships looked like they were built for war, not for trade or travel. "Try to contact them," Lee Taman said. Officer Kim pressed buttons and spoke into his microphone. "Unknown ships, this is Kepler Station. Please identify yourselves and state your business." A voice came back through the speakers. It sounded rough and angry. "Human station, you will surrender immediately. This territory belongs to the hegemony. You have 1 hour to prepare for evacuation." Lee Taman felt his blood go cold. The hegemony was known throughout the galaxy as a group of alien races that took what they wanted by force. They had been expanding their territory for years, but always far from human space. "This is Commander Lee Taman of Kepler Station," he said into the microphone. "We are peaceful miners. This station has been here for 10 years under galactic law. We need time to contact Earth and discuss this matter." The alien voice laughed. It was not a nice sound. "You have 1 hour, human. After that, we take what is ours." Lee Taman looked around the control room. His officers were scared, but they waited for his orders. He had to think fast. 50,000 people depended on him. "Send an emergency message to Earth," he told Officer Kim. "Tell them what's happening. Send all our records, too." He pressed another button. "Captain Kim Jae-ho, please come to the control center immediately." Captain Kim Jae-ho arrived within minutes. He was the captain of Seoul's Pride, a large transport ship that carried people and supplies between Earth and the outer colonies. He was a good man and a skilled pilot. "Captain, I need you to prepare your ship," Lee Taman said quietly. "If things go bad, you might need to get as many people as possible out of here." Captain Kim Jae-ho nodded. He understood without needing more explanation. Lee Taman called his sister Park So-young. She came to the control center with worry on her face. "Taman, what's happening?" "People are talking about alien ships. So-young, I need you to start moving your research data to Captain Kim's ship. Take only the most important things." She looked at the screen showing the alien ships. They were getting closer. "Are we in danger?" Lee Taman put his hand on her shoulder. "I hope not. But we need to be ready." The hour passed quickly. Lee Taman tried to contact Earth, but the alien ships were blocking all long-range communications. He could only send short emergency signals. When the hour ended, the alien voice came back. "Human Commander, have you prepared for evacuation?" "We need more time," Lee Taman said. "We have civilians here, including children. We need to contact our government. Your time is over. We are boarding your station now." Small ships left the big alien vessels and flew toward Kepler Station. Lee Taman watched them get closer. Each small ship carried armed soldiers. "All security teams to positions," he announced on the station radio. "This is not a drill. Protect the civilians." The alien soldiers broke into the station through the docking bays. They were tall creatures with thick skin like reptiles. Behind them came others that looked like giant insects walking on 2 legs. They carried weapons that Lee Taman had never seen before. "We come in peace," Lee Taman said when he met them in the main corridor. "We can discuss this situation." The leader of the aliens was huge, even bigger than the others. His skin was dark green and covered with scars. "I am Warcast Thesak. You will surrender this station and all humans will leave immediately. We are willing to discuss relocation," Lee Taman said carefully, "but we need time to organize transport for 50,000 people. We have families and children here." Thesak looked at him with cold yellow eyes. "You humans always talk too much." Without warning, Thesak pointed his weapon at Lee Taman and fired. The energy blast threw Lee Taman against the wall. He fell to the ground, badly hurt but still alive. "Civilians run," he shouted as loud as he could. What happened next was worse than anything Lee Taemin had seen in his years as a soldier. The aliens did not just take the station. They began killing everyone they found. They shot at people running away. They destroyed the living areas where families were hiding. Park So-young was in her laboratory when the killing started. She grabbed her research data and ran toward the docking bay where Captain Kim's ship was waiting. Behind her, she could hear screaming and the sound of alien weapons. She almost made it. The docking bay was just ahead when an energy blast hit the wall next to her. She turned and saw one of the insect aliens pointing its weapon at her. "Please," she said. "I'm not a soldier. I'm just a scientist." The alien did not care. It fired its weapon. Captain Kim Jae-ho heard the weapons fire from his ship. He had been loading as many people as possible, but now he knew they were out of time. 15,000 people were on his ship, but there was room for more. "Captain, we have to go," his first officer said. "They're coming this way." Kim Jae-ho looked out at the station. He could see fires burning in the living areas. He could hear people screaming. But if he stayed longer, everyone on his ship would die too. "Close the doors," he said quietly. "Take us out." As Seoul's Pride flew away from Kepler Station, Kim Jae-ho recorded everything he could see. The alien ships were destroying the parts of the station where people lived. They were not trying to capture anything. They were just killing. Lee Tae-min was still alive, but barely. He crawled to a communication panel and managed to send one last message. His voice was weak, but his words were clear. "This is Commander Lee Tae-min of Kepler Station. The hegemony has attacked our civilian population without cause. They are murdering innocents, including children. Tell Earth, tell them that humans don't negotiate with murderers." The communication went dead. Lee Tae-min closed his eyes and thought about his sister. He hoped she had made it to safety, but in his heart he knew she had not. Captain Kim Jae-ho flew his ship toward Earth as fast as he could. Behind him, Kepler Station was dying. 35,000 people were dead or would be soon. He carried the only proof of what had happened. In the cargo hold of Seoul's Pride, 15,000 survivors sat in silence. They had lost everything. Many had lost family members. Children cried for parents they would never see again, but they were alive. And they carried something important with them. The truth about what the hegemony had done. Soon Earth would know. Soon the galaxy would know. Captain Kim Jae-ho looked at the stars ahead and pressed his ship to go faster. He had a message to deliver, and it would change everything. 3 weeks after the attack on Kepler Station, Captain Kim Jae-ho arrived at Earth. His ship Seoul's Pride carried 15,000 survivors and recordings of the worst day in human history. The news spread across Earth within hours. People watched the videos in shock and anger. They saw the alien ships destroying homes where families lived. They heard the screams of children. They saw Commander Lee Tae-min's final message before he died. Ambassador Choi Hyun-woo was in his office at the Galactic Council building when he received the emergency call from Earth. He had been humanity's voice in galactic politics for 12 years. He was known as a calm and reasonable man who always looked for peaceful solutions. "Mr. Ambassador," his assistant said, "Earth Command needs to speak with you immediately." The video call showed Director Yoon Min-ji, head of Human Intelligence Services. Her face was serious and angry. Behind her stood General Kang Dong-wook, the highest military officer in Earth's forces. "Hyun-woo," Director Yoon said, "you need to see this recording, all of it." For the next 2 hours, Ambassador Choi watched the videos from Kepler Station. He saw the peaceful mining colony before the attack. He saw the alien ships arrive. He watched as Warcast Thesak killed Commander Lee Tae-min for asking for time. He saw the systematic murder of 35,000 innocent people. When the videos ended, Ambassador Choi sat in silence for a long time. He had seen war before, but this was different. This was not war. This was slaughter. "The hegemony representatives are already spreading their version of events," Director Yoon said. "They claim Kepler Station was built on their ancient territory. They say humans were warned to leave but refused." "That's a lie," Ambassador Choi said quietly. "Of course it's a lie," General Kang said. "The question is, what are we going to do about it?" Ambassador Choi looked at the two most powerful people in Earth's government. "What are my orders?" Director Yoon leaned forward. "Present the evidence to the Galactic Council. Demand justice. If they refuse," she paused. "If they refuse, you know what to do." Ambassador Choi nodded. He had hoped this day would never come, but Earth had prepared for it. Hidden in his office safe were sealed orders that he had never wanted to open. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was called for the next day. Representatives from 12 major species gathered in the Great Hall on the neutral world of Nexus Prime. The building was huge and beautiful, designed to show the peace and cooperation between different races. Ambassador Choi entered the hall carrying a simple datapad. Other diplomats nodded to him politely. They had worked together for years on trade agreements and border disputes. Most of them considered humans to be pleasant but weak, a young species that would eventually learn how galactic politics really worked. The session began with Council Chairman Viridian, an elderly member of the First People race, calling for order. The First People had been part of galactic civilization for thousands of years. They believed in tradition and careful negotiation. We gather today to discuss the unfortunate incident at the human facility called Kepler Station, Chairman Viridian said in his slow, formal way. The hegemony has filed a territorial claim, while humans claim an unprovoked attack occurred. Warcast Thesak stood to speak for the hegemony. He was even bigger than he had looked in the videos, and his scarred green skin made him look dangerous. Behind him sat representatives of the 3 other hegemony races, the insect-like Chithari, the 4-armed Mexari, and the floating gas creatures called the Void-Touched. "Honored Council," Thesak said in his rough voice. "The territory around Kepler Station has belonged to the hegemony for over 2,000 years. Ancient law gives us the right to reclaim our ancestral grounds. The humans were offered peaceful evacuation but chose to resist." Several council members nodded. Territorial disputes were common, and usually ended with negotiations and payments. Thesak continued, "The hegemony regrets any loss of life, but humans brought this upon themselves. We offer standard reparations, 1 million galactic credits per casualty, and we will provide suitable territory for human relocation in Sector 47. Ambassador Choi listened to these words with a cold feeling growing in his chest. 1 million credits for each murdered human. Money for the lives of children who would never grow up. Chairman Viridian turned to him. Ambassador Choi, does humanity accept this generous offer from the hegemony? Ambassador Choi stood slowly. The Great Hall became quiet as everyone waited for his response. This was the moment when humans were supposed to negotiate, to find a compromise that everyone could accept. Instead, Ambassador Choi pressed a button on his datapad. The hall's viewing screens came alive with images from Kepler Station. Council members saw the peaceful mining colony. They saw families going about their daily lives. They saw children playing in the small park. Then they saw the attack. They watched as alien soldiers killed unarmed civilians. They heard the screams. They saw Warcast Thesak shoot Commander Lee Tae-min for asking for time to evacuate families safely. Many council members looked away from the screens. Some made sounds of distress, but Thesak and his allies sat without emotion, as if they were watching a weather report. When the videos ended, Ambassador Choi spoke in a clear, quiet voice that carried to every corner of the hall. Honored Council, you have seen the truth of what happened at Kepler Station. 35,000 human civilians were murdered in cold blood, not killed in battle, not caught in crossfire, murdered deliberately for the crime of existing in a place the hegemony wanted. He looked directly at Warcast Thesak. You killed children who were sleeping in their beds. You killed scientists who had never held weapons. You killed grandparents who had come to visit their families. The hall was completely silent now. Ambassador Choi had never spoken like this before. His calm diplomat's voice was gone, replaced by something harder and colder. The hegemony now offers us money, Ambassador Choi continued. They want to pay us credits for the lives of murdered innocents as if humans were cargo that was accidentally damaged. Chairman Viridian cleared his throat. Ambassador, the hegemony's offer follows standard galactic law for territorial disputes. Perhaps we can negotiate better terms? No, Ambassador Choi said. The simple word hit the hall like a physical blow. No council session had ever heard a member refuse to negotiate. The human delegation wishes to inform this council that Earth recognizes no authority that negotiates with child murderers, Ambassador Choi said. We formally withdraw from all galactic accords effective immediately. The hall erupted in chaos. Representatives from 12 species began talking at once. Some shouted questions at Ambassador Choi. Others tried to restore order. The hegemony delegation sat motionless, but Ambassador Choi could see anger building in their eyes. Chairman Viridian banged his ceremonial staff on the floor. Ambassador Choi, you cannot simply withdraw from galactic law. Think about what you are saying. Ambassador Choi looked around the hall at the faces of alien diplomats he had worked with for 12 years. Some looked confused. Others looked angry. A few looked frightened, though he was not sure why. I have thought about it very carefully, he said. Earth will have nothing more to do with a system that treats mass murder as a property dispute. He picked up his data pad and walked toward the exit. Behind him, the hall filled with angry voices demanding he return to negotiate. Ambassador Choi paused at the door and looked back one final time. The Council may consider this matter closed, he said. Earth does not. As he left the building, Ambassador Choi opened his sealed orders for the first time. The message from Director Yoon was short. Protocol Bushido is now active. Return to Earth immediately. Tell no one. 3 hours later, Ambassador Choi's ship left Nexus Prime. Behind him, the Galactic Council continued their emergency session, trying to understand what had just happened. Warcast Thesak was not worried. Humans were weak. They talked about peace and cooperation. Now they were angry, but anger without strength was meaningless. Soon they would come back and accept whatever terms the hegemony offered. But some of the older council members remembered stories from their grandparents. Stories about what happened when you pushed certain species too far. They looked at the empty seat where Ambassador Choi had been sitting, and they felt afraid. Deep in space, relay stations that had been built by human engineers began receiving new signals. Security codes that had been sleeping for years suddenly activated. Across the galaxy, hidden systems came online. Humanity had been preparing for this day since they first joined galactic civilization. Now the preparation was over. The silence had begun. 6 months passed after Ambassador Choi left the Galactic Council. During those months, something strange happened across the galaxy. Humans simply disappeared, not all at once, but slowly and quietly. Human trading ships stopped arriving at alien ports. Human colonies went silent when other species tried to contact them. Human diplomats left their posts and did not return. At first, the other species thought this was just humans being emotional. The Kelvari, a peaceful race of traders, sent ships to human colonies to check on their friends. They found the colonies empty, but not destroyed. Everything was clean and organized, as if the humans had simply packed up and left. The Galactic Council tried to contact Earth directly, but all communication channels were closed. Long-range sensors showed that human space was still active. Ships were moving and energy signatures showed normal activity. But no signals came out and no ships came in. Warcast Thesak was pleased. He told the other hegemony leaders that humans had run away like cowards. This proved that the hegemony was the strongest force in the galaxy. It was time to expand their territory even more. The hegemony began taking over star systems that had been in the neutral zone between different species. They enslaved the alien populations they found and strip-mined valuable worlds. Other species complained to the Galactic Council, but without human support, the Council was too weak to stop the hegemony. But inside human space, something very different was happening. Fleet Admiral Oh Se-hun stood in the command center of the secret base called Iron Mountain. The base was built inside a hollow asteroid far from any trade routes. It had been under construction for 40 years, hidden from all alien sensors. Report, Admiral Oh said to his staff. All Phase 1 objectives complete, sir, said Captain Bayek Sun-ho. Every human colony has been evacuated to secure locations. All civilian populations are safe in the deep space habitats. Industrial production? Running at 300% of normal capacity, sir. The automated factories are working around the clock. Admiral O nodded. For 40 years, humanity had been building a hidden industrial network. While aliens thought humans were just peaceful miners and traders, Earth had been preparing for war. Dr. Lim Hae-young entered the command center carrying a data pad. She was the director of advanced weapons research, and she looked tired but excited. Admiral, the Nova project is ready for testing, she said. Admiral O looked at the data on her pad. What he saw made him take a deep breath. Are you sure about these numbers? Triple-checked, sir. We can turn any star into a weapon. The hegemony has never seen anything like this. Dr. Lim's team had been working on something that would have horrified the Galactic Council. They had found a way to use human fusion technology to destabilize stars. It was far beyond anything the aliens considered possible. How many stars can we target? Any star in hegemony space, sir. We've been placing the devices for 20 years, hidden in our trade goods and diplomatic gifts. Admiral O felt a cold satisfaction. While the hegemony thought humans were weak, human engineers had been building weapons throughout their territory. Every communications array humans had installed included hidden components. Every power plant humans had helped build contained secret systems. What about the fleet? Captain Bike smiled. All ships ready, sir. The hegemony has never seen anything like our new designs. In secret shipyards hidden throughout human space, a new type of warship was being built. These ships were not designed for exploration or trade. They were designed for one purpose: total war. The ships used alien technology in ways that violated every known law of physics. Human engineers had studied every species in the galaxy and found their weaknesses. The new ships carried weapons specifically designed to destroy hegemony vessels. But the most important part of the human preparation was not technology. It was doctrine. For 50 years, human military strategists had studied every war in galactic history. They had learned from the mistakes of species that had been conquered by the hegemony. They had developed new tactics that no alien military had ever imagined. General Kang Dong-wook arrived at Iron Mountain to inspect the preparations. He was old now, but his mind was still sharp. He had been planning this war since humans first encountered the hegemony. "Status report, Admiral," he said. "All forces ready, sir. We can begin operations at any time." General Kang looked at the strategic displays showing hegemony territory. Red dots marked their major bases and industrial centers. Blue dots marked hidden human assets. There were far more blue dots than the hegemony could possibly imagine. What about intelligence gathering? Colonel Song Mi-rae's teams have infiltrated every major hegemony facility, Admiral O reported. We know their troop movements, their supply lines, their command structure. They know nothing about us. Colonel Song Mi-rae commanded the Ghost Division, humanity's most elite special forces unit. Her soldiers had been training for this war their entire careers. They had studied hegemony biology and psychology until they knew their enemies better than the aliens knew themselves. Using technology that made them invisible to alien sensors, Ghost Division teams had been moving freely through hegemony space for months. They mapped military bases, identified key personnel, and prepared sabotage operations. The aliens never knew they were there. General Kang reviewed the final battle plans. The human strategy was simple and brutal. They would not fight a traditional war with battles and negotiations. They would systematically destroy the hegemony's ability to make war, and they would give no mercy to anyone who had participated in genocide. Remember, General Kang told his officers, we are not conquering territory, we are delivering justice. Every hegemony leader who ordered the killing of civilians will be held accountable. Every soldier who murdered innocents will face trial. Every species that helped them will pay reparations. The officers nodded. They had all seen the videos from Kepler Station. They had heard Commander Lee Taemin's final message. They knew why they were fighting. Meanwhile, in the Galactic Council building on Nexus Prime, the other species were beginning to worry. The hegemony's expansion was getting worse, and without humans to provide balance, the Council could not stop them. Chairman Viridian called for another emergency session. We must try to contact Earth again, he said. Perhaps they have had time to calm down and will return to negotiations. But when they tried to send diplomatic messages to human space, the messages simply disappeared into silence. Long-range sensors showed that human territory was still active, but it was completely closed to the outside galaxy. Some council members suggested sending a military expedition to force contact with Earth. Others pointed out that such an action would be an act of war against a species that had never shown aggression to anyone except the hegemony. The Kelvari representative, Ambassador Zhen, spoke up. Perhaps we should consider that humans meant what they said. They told us they would not negotiate with murderers. We allowed the hegemony to buy their way out of genocide. Maybe humans were right to leave. This caused an argument that lasted for hours. Some species supported the hegemony's right to expand. Others were beginning to fear what the hegemony might do to their own worlds. While the council argued, human preparations continued. Every day, more ships joined the hidden fleet. Every day, more weapons were manufactured. Every day, human intelligence gathered more information about hegemony targets. Dr. Lim completed the final tests on her stellar weapons. Admiral O reviewed the fleet deployment plans. Colonel Song prepared her infiltration teams for their final missions. And in a secure communication room deep inside Iron Mountain, Director Yoon Min-ji received a message that made her smile for the first time in months. The message was from Captain Kim Jae-ho, who had been given command of a new ship, the first human dreadnought. His message was simple. All survivors from Kepler Station have volunteered for frontline duty. They want to be there when justice is served. Director Yoon forwarded the message to General Kang. Soon, the families who had lost everything at Kepler Station would see their murdered loved ones avenged. The galaxy thought humans had run away in fear. The hegemony thought they had won by intimidation. The Galactic Council thought the crisis had passed. They were all wrong. Deep in space, human fleets began moving toward their targets. The ships flew in complete silence, invisible to alien sensors. Their crews were volunteers who had trained their entire lives for this moment. On each ship, the same message was displayed in the command center. Kepler Station, 35,000 innocents, never forget, never forgive. The time for preparation was almost over. Soon the galaxy would learn what happened when humans stopped talking and started fighting, and they would learn that humans had been preparing for this war since the day they first met aliens, who thought murder was just another form of diplomacy. 1 year after the massacre at Kepler Station, Warcast Thesak felt confident that the hegemony had won. Human space remained silent, and the weak Galactic Council could not stop hegemony expansion. It was time for the final push. Thesak stood in the command center of his flagship, the massive warship called Bloodclaw. Around him, the largest hegemony fleet ever assembled prepared to attack the neutral zone worlds. These planets were home to peaceful species that had no strong military forces. Begin the assault, Thesak ordered. Show these inferior species what happens when they resist the hegemony. The hegemony fleet moved toward the planet Sanctuary, home to the peaceful Delvari people. The Delvari were philosophers and artists who had never built weapons of war. Their planet was beautiful, with crystal cities and floating gardens. As the hegemony ships approached Sanctuary, Thesak opened a communication channel to the planet's surface. Delvari, you have 1 hour to surrender unconditionally. Your planet will become a hegemony mining world. Your people will serve as workers. Resistance will result in complete extermination. On Sanctuary's surface, Elder Crystal of the Delvari Council looked at the alien fleet with sadness. Her people had no warships, no military. They would have to surrender or die. Send a message to the Galactic Council, she told her aide. Tell them the hegemony is attacking peaceful worlds. Perhaps someone will help us. But before the message could be sent, something impossible happened. Space around the hegemony fleet suddenly filled with human ships. They appeared without warning, as if they had materialized out of empty space. The ships were unlike anything anyone had ever seen, sleek, dark vessels that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Thesak stared at his sensor displays in shock. Where did they come from? How many ships? His sensor officer's voice shook as he answered. Warcast, sensors show over 200 human vessels, but that's impossible. Humans don't have a fleet this large. The lead human ship was enormous, larger even than Thesak's flagship. On its hull, letters spelled out its name, Vengeance of Earth. A communication signal came from the human fleet. The voice was calm and cold. Hegemony forces, this is Supreme Admiral Park Ji-hoon of the Earth Defense Fleet. You are guilty of genocide against human civilians. Surrender immediately or face destruction. Thesak laughed. Human, you are outnumbered. My fleet has 500 ships. You cannot threaten the hegemony. You killed 35,000 innocent humans, Admiral Park replied. You murdered children in their sleep. You destroyed families. Today you face justice. Thesak was about to respond when his weapons officer shouted in alarm. Warcast. Human ships are targeting our engines and life support systems. They have weapons locks on every ship in our fleet. This was impossible. Hegemony ships had the best shields and armor in the galaxy. No weapons should be able to target their vital systems so precisely. Fire all weapons, Thesak ordered. Destroy the human ships. The hegemony fleet opened fire with everything they had. Energy beams and missiles filled space between the two fleets. But something was wrong. The human ships moved in ways that defied physics. dodging attacks that should have been impossible to avoid. And when the human fleet fired back, their weapons did something terrifying. The energy beams from human ships passed through hegemony shields as if they did not exist. The weapons struck with surgical precision, disabling engines and life support systems without destroying the ships completely. Within minutes, half the hegemony fleet was dead in space, powerless and helpless. How are they doing this? Thesak demanded. His science officer looked at his instruments with fear. Forecast. Their weapons are specifically designed to counter our technology. They know the exact frequency of our shields, the composition of our armor, the layout of our ships. Admiral Park's voice came over the communication channel again. Thesak, you have killed your last innocent. Surrender now, and your crew will live to stand trial for war crimes. Instead of surrendering, Thesak ordered his remaining ships to attack the planet sanctuary. If he could not defeat the humans, he would at least complete his mission of conquest. But as his ships turned toward the planet, they found their path blocked by more human vessels. These ships were smaller but even faster, moving like living creatures through space. Captain Nam Woo Jin commanded one of these new human dreadnoughts. His ship, called Soul's Wrath, had been designed specifically to hunt large enemy vessels like Thesak's flagship. Target the Bloodclaw, Captain Nam ordered. Begin recording for broadcast to all hegemony forces. As Soul's Wrath attacked the Bloodclaw, Captain Nam activated a communication system that sent signals throughout hegemony space. Every hegemony base, every conquered world, every alien species under their control received the same message. The message was a recording of the Kepler Station massacre, followed by images of the current battle. A calm human voice explained what was happening. This is the Earth Defense Fleet. The hegemony has committed genocide against human civilians. We are now delivering justice. All hegemony military forces will be destroyed or captured. All hegemony leaders will stand trial for war crimes. Resistance is futile. The recording showed Thesak's mighty fleet being systematically disabled by human forces. Ship after ship went dark as human weapons precisely destroyed their ability to fight. On hegemony worlds across the galaxy, alien populations saw their supposedly invincible military being defeated by a species they had been told was weak and cowardly. But the humans were not finished. While Admiral Park's fleet dealt with Thesak's forces, other human fleets struck hegemony bases throughout their territory. The attacks came simultaneously, coordinated with precision that spoke of years of planning. Colonel Song Mi Ray led her Ghost Division in infiltration attacks on hegemony command centers. Her soldiers appeared inside supposedly secure facilities as if they could walk through walls. They moved with perfect knowledge of each base's layout, striking with weapons designed specifically to target each alien species' biology. The hegemony's insectoid Chithari forces found themselves facing human weapons that disrupted their nervous systems. The four-armed Mexari discovered that humans had developed sonic weapons that shattered their bone-like exoskeletons. The gas-based Void Touched learned that human ships carried atmospheric processors that could poison their life support systems. Every weakness of every hegemony species had been studied and exploited. Dr. Lim Hae-young watched from Iron Mountain as her stellar weapons activated across hegemony space. Stars that had seemed normal suddenly began to flicker and change color. The weapons did not destroy the stars, but they made them unstable, threatening any nearby space installations. Hegemony forces throughout their territory suddenly found their bases under threat from the very stars around them. Supply lines that had seemed secure became death traps. Back at the battle near Sanctuary, Thesak's flagship was dying. Human weapons had systematically destroyed every system except life support. The Bloodclaw drifted powerless in space, its crew trapped inside. This is impossible, Thesak said to himself. Humans are weak. They negotiate. They compromise. Captain Nam's voice came over the communication system one final time. Warcast Thesak, you are under arrest for genocide. You will be transported to Earth to stand trial for the murder of 35,000 human civilians. Human boarding craft attached to the Bloodclaw. Soldiers in advanced armor cut through the hull and entered the ship. They moved with purpose and precision, stunning any alien who resisted and securing all hegemony personnel. When they reached the command center, Thesak saw humans for the first time since Kepler Station. These soldiers wore armor that made them look like death itself. Their weapons were aimed directly at him. I am Warcast Thesak, he roared. I do not surrender to inferior species. The human commander removed his helmet, revealing a face that was calm but filled with cold anger. I am Captain Baek Soon-ho, the human said. One of the families you murdered at Kepler Station was mine. My wife and daughter died because you wanted to send a message about hegemony strength. Desak looked into Captain Baek's eyes and saw something that made his blood run cold. This human was not emotional or angry. He was simply determined to see justice done. You are now a prisoner of war, Captain Baek continued. You will stand trial for genocide. The evidence against you is overwhelming. The penalty under human law is death. As Thesak was led away in restraints, he could see through the ship's windows that the entire hegemony fleet had been captured or destroyed. Not a single human ship had been lost. Throughout hegemony space, the same pattern repeated. Fleets that had seemed invincible were defeated in minutes. Bases that had never been threatened were captured by soldiers who seemed to appear from nowhere. The galaxy watched in shock as reports came in from across hegemony territory. The species that had seemed unstoppable was being systematically dismantled by humans who had been dismissed as weak and peaceful. On Sanctuary, Elder Crystal looked up at the human ships that had saved her world. She opened a communication channel to Admiral Park's flagship. Admiral, we thank you for saving our people, she said. But we must ask, what happens now? Admiral Park's response was broadcast not just to Sanctuary, but to every world in the galaxy. 3 months after the human offensive began, the hegemony no longer existed as a military force. Their fleets were destroyed or captured. Their leaders were prisoners awaiting trial. Their conquered worlds were free. The galaxy had never seen anything like it. In less than 100 days, humans had completely dismantled an empire that had terrorized alien species for centuries. Now the Galactic Council faced a new reality. They were no longer the highest authority in known space. That position belonged to Earth. Chairman Viridian looked around the Great Hall on Nexus Prime. For the first time in the Council's history, they were meeting to discuss terms dictated by another species. Human ships surrounded the planet, and human soldiers stood guard at every entrance to the building. President Shin Jae-won of Earth entered the hall with a small group of advisors. He was not a military man. He had been elected by Earth's people to lead their democratic government. But the power he represented was absolute. Behind him walked Admiral Jung Soo-jin, the architect of the post-war galactic order. She carried datapads containing the new laws that would govern the galaxy. The president took his place at the speaker's platform where Ambassador Choi had stood a year ago when humans withdrew from galactic civilization. But this time the humans were not leaving. They were taking control. Members of the former Galactic Council, President Shin began, we are here to establish a new order based on the protection of innocent life. He gestured to Admiral Jung, who activated the hall's display screens. The screens showed images from across former hegemony territory, worlds being rebuilt, enslaved populations being freed, families being reunited. The hegemony killed 35,000 human civilians. President Shin continued. They enslaved millions of other beings. They destroyed entire civilizations for profit. And this council called it a territorial dispute that could be solved with money. Many council members looked uncomfortable. They remembered how they had tried to negotiate with the hegemony after the Kepler Station massacre. Earth will not allow such crimes to happen again, President Shin said. We are establishing the new galactic accords. Every species in this galaxy will sign these accords or they will be excluded from galactic civilization. Admiral Jung stepped forward and began reading from her datapad. Article 1. The deliberate targeting of civilian populations is a crime against all sentient life. Any species, government, or organization that commits genocide will face immediate military intervention by Earth forces. The hall was completely silent. This was not a negotiation. These were demands. Article 2. All species that aided or supported the hegemony's crimes will pay reparations to their victims. The amount and method of payment will be determined by Earth tribunals. Some representatives began to object, but Admiral Jung continued without pause. Article 3. Earth Defense Forces will maintain permanent bases throughout the galaxy to ensure compliance with these accords. Earth has the authority to investigate any reports of civilian targeting and to take appropriate action. Ambassador Han Kyung-mi, Earth's new representative to the Reformed Council, stood up to address specific species. She was young but carried herself with the confidence of someone representing the galaxy's dominant military power. The Vorthak species contributed weapons to the hegemony, she said, looking directly at their representative. You will pay reparations equivalent to 50% of your gross planetary product for the next 20 years. The Vorthak representative, a creature that looked like a giant spider, tried to object. This is impossible. Our economy cannot survive such payments. You should have considered that before helping to murder children, Ambassador Han replied coldly. The terms are not negotiable. She turned to the next species. The Nexari provided ships to transport hegemony forces. You will turn over your entire merchant fleet to refugee resettlement efforts. One by one, she addressed every species that had supported the hegemony in any way. The reparations were harsh but not impossible to pay. Earth wanted justice, not the destruction of entire civilizations. But for the species that had directly participated in genocide, the terms were different. The remaining Chitauri population will be relocated to a supervised world where they will be monitored by Earth forces, Admiral Jung announced. Their military technology will be destroyed, and they will never again be permitted to develop weapons capable of harming other species. President Shin stepped forward again. Some of you are wondering if Earth has the right to impose these terms. Let me be clear. We do not claim this right because we are stronger, though we are. We claim this right because we are willing to use our strength to protect the innocent. He activated another display that showed human forces throughout the galaxy. Massive ships patrolled trade routes, ensuring safe passage for all species. Human bases protected worlds that had never been able to defend themselves. Human medical teams provided aid to populations that had been enslaved or abused. Earth could have chosen to isolate ourselves after Kepler Station. President Shin continued. We could have built defenses and ignored the rest of the galaxy. Instead, we chose to ensure that no other species suffers what humans suffered. The truth was more complex than President Shin stated, and everyone in the hall knew it. Earth had not just responded to an attack. They had demonstrated military capabilities that made them the unquestioned rulers of the galaxy. But they were using that power to protect rather than conquer. Chairman Viridian, representing the oldest and most traditional species in the council, stood slowly. President Shin, the first people have lived in peace for 10,000 years. We accept the wisdom of Earth's leadership in these matters. One by one, the other species declared their acceptance of the new galactic accords. They had seen what happened to those who opposed Earth, and they had seen what happened to those who were protected by Earth. The choice was simple. Accept human leadership and live in peace, or face the same fate as the hegemony. After the formal ceremony, Admiral Jung Soo-jin met privately with the commanders who would implement the new order. The galaxy was now divided into protection zones, each patrolled by human forces. Remember, she told them, we are not conquerors, we are guardians. Our job is to prevent another Kepler station, not to rule other species. Captain Kim Jae-ho, who had escaped from Kepler station with 15,000 survivors, now commanded a fleet of human ships protecting former hegemony worlds. What about the survivors, Admiral? What do they want? Admiral Jung smiled sadly. They want what we all want, to make sure it never happens again. Most of them have volunteered to stay in the fleet, helping to rebuild the worlds that were destroyed. The new galactic order was not perfect. Some species resented human dominance. Others worried about what would happen if Earth ever became corrupt or aggressive. But for the first time in galactic history, weak species could travel safely through space without fear of being enslaved or murdered. Trade routes that had been controlled by pirates were now protected by human patrols. Worlds that had lived in fear of stronger neighbors now had Earth's protection. Species that had been enslaved for generations were free to rebuild their civilizations. President Shin returned to Earth for a special ceremony. In the capital city, a new memorial had been built to honor the victims of Kepler Station. The memorial was simple, a black wall with 35,000 names carved into it. At the dedication ceremony, President Shin spoke to a crowd that included survivors from Kepler Station and families of those who had died. These names represent more than victims, he said. They represent the moment when humanity decided that some things are worth fighting for. They represent the moment when we chose to become protectors rather than bystanders. Captain Kim Jae-ho, now wearing the uniform of the Earth Defense Fleet, placed a wreath at the memorial. The wreath bore a simple message: Your sacrifice changed the galaxy. Dr. Park So-young's name was on the wall, along with Commander Lee Tae-min's and 34,998 others. They had died as innocent civilians, but their deaths had ended the age of galactic barbarism. In his office overlooking the memorial, Director Yoon Min-ji reviewed reports from across the galaxy. Human forces were investigating 3 potential cases of civilian targeting. Earth's intelligence network, built over 50 years of careful preparation, was ensuring that no crimes against innocents went unnoticed. The age of negotiation with murderers was over. The age of justice had begun, but Director Yoon knew that this was only the beginning. Somewhere in the galaxy, other species might be planning aggression against civilians. Other groups might think they could challenge Earth's authority. They would learn, as the hegemony had learned, that humans meant what they said. When it came to protecting innocent life, Earth would negotiate with no one. The memorial wall bore one final inscription, visible to everyone who visited. Humans don't negotiate with murderers. The galaxy is safer because we keep our word. As ships from dozens of species traveled safely through space under Earth's protection, those words served as both a promise and a warning. Peace was guaranteed to those who chose it, but for those who chose murder, justice was guaranteed as well. The galaxy had learned that humans were capable of both infinite compassion and infinite determination.